Just wriggle your shoulders around, your toes. In a way, you're just awakening your body. And as you move your toes and your shoulders, maybe your fingers, you begin becoming a little bit more aware of your body. And what you want to initially establish is the simple fact that your body it's stopped moving. At least it stopped moving to the extent it was a few moments ago. You were probably involved in work or food or chores, phones, the internet, books, pets, getting ready for this practice, finding the right space, silencing phones. And so there's been quite a lot of activity, a lot of movement. Now you want to notice the change that is enveloping your body. Quite vivid from those points of contact between your body and the cushions or the seats underneath you. Notice just use the word arriving. I'm arriving. My body has arrived. My body has arrived. But the mind, that's a different story. That's a different story. I'm not going to expect the mind to have arrived just yet. But I'll just ring the bell just to help you tune more fully into your bodies. The cushion, the chair, the seat underneath you. Notice that if it's a soft surface that's supporting your body, notice how it molds to the shape of your body, how it supports and balances your body. And if it's a harder surface, notice how your body adapts, how your body has the ability to adapt and mold itself to the shape of that surface. And then there's the temperature of the room that you find yourself in. And with regard to the temperature, you'll notice many, many different dimensions to this temperature. There's what those exposed areas of skin can experience. Those areas are normally a little bit cooler than the parts that are covered in clothing. And then for those parts of the body that have fabric, have clothing wrapped around them, there's a very fine layer of warm air in between the fabric and your skin. You might even be able to detect folds in the fabric, its softness, its roughness, And you've pretty much established that yes, your body has arrived. Your body has arrived. And then you begin to notice to what extent at this moment, to what extent you can identify and align yourself with your bodies, and to what extent you are still identified with your mind. And the process is very simple. Through simple observation, just notice what's on the mind. What's on your mind right now? Just by listening to those words, a gap has appeared between the observer and the mind. Whereas previously, and for most of us who've experienced anxiety, worries, anger, sadness, any of those emotions that we can actually feel in our body, it's usually a sign of identification with the mind, believing ourselves to be the mind, reliving events in the past, and living events in the future that have not happened and may never occur. We call those anxiety, worries. Some of us, we have physical conditions that doctors have labeled as illnesses, both physical and mental, or mental. And very often this practice is connected to our health. You've probably heard how meditation and mindfulness have been shown to improve physical and mental health in those studied by doctors and scientists. And sometimes it's just nice to understand this connection, how this practice is helping us, how we can use it in our day-to-day, our moment-to-moment life. Because what happens is that our bodies do not have the ability to distinguish between a thought and reality. And so when we relive an event in our past over and over again, the body releases the chemicals, the stress chemicals, the enzymes, whatever it is, the acids, whatever it is you want to call them, it releases, constantly releasing, believing that that is actually happening, that event in the past is actually happening. It might be feelings you have against somebody because of, quite justified, no doubt, what somebody did to you in the past. And we keep living it over and over again. There's a teacher called Wayne Dyer, whom I've often spoken of. He has many wise words. And he talks about how actions carried out by others in the past. And if you know anything about his life, he had a few people that he really needed to forgive, such as his father, who abandoned his whole family during the Depression era. And he talks a lot about how it It ate him up. It almost destroyed him. His hatred, his anger. And in the end, he found a way of forgiving. But it's really the words that he used that resonated with me. He talked about how when somebody does something wrong that hurt us, it happened once. It's like a bite, like a snake bite. But the bite never kills a person. He reminded us, the bite never kills, it's the venom. The venom destroys us as it flows through our system, as it flows through our blood like a chemical, which it is, a foreign chemical. And he likens this practice that we are embarking into as freeing ourselves from such venom. Yes, those wrongs that were committed against us, they happened. They happened. And it is the venom, it is remembering those events and reliving them over and over again that are causing many of our illnesses, our pains, both physical and mental. And this is a practice where we don't, it's unlike many of the therapies that we sometimes use in our lives. Instead of going back to analyze it, we simply step into the present moment. Literally, from the past, from all of those events, experiences, voices, images, stories, all stories. We join our body. We align ourselves to this body which we've somewhat established that the bodies are here. On these chairs, on these cushions, on these mats, on these mattresses. In these rooms. Sitting or lying down, breathing, and that's it. What problems do you have here at this moment, this very microsecond? Even if we were talking about physical pains, yes, the physical pain is there, the physical discomfort. And if it's a mental condition, it's a label. It's a label that a doctor has given us. But labels can only exist if you have learned what they mean. Memories. Physical discomfort can only exist if you have memories of what it feels like to be comfortable. And that comfort, discomfort, comfort, the comfort I refer to might have been yesterday, it might have been 10 minutes ago before you sat down in this posture that you're not very comfortable with. Or it might have been a year or two ago before an accident or before changes begin to occur in your body. And so the discomfort that you experience at this moment exists only because this moment is being compared against some memory of the past or some projection into the future where you foresee the absence of this sensation. And so if you do feel physical discomfort, give yourself permission to stretch, to move, to find a posture that's more comfortable. But of course, for many of us, that's just simply not possible. No matter what posture you adopt, the discomfort remains, particularly for chronic conditions. And if this were the case, let us all enter into the present moment. My voice will guide you towards different tools. That will help you to release those notions of what it was like before, what it should be like, what we should be feeling, and simply find ways in which to make peace with everything that we find here and now. I'll ring the bell one more time, so you can visualize yourself climbing into your bodies. Maybe a step. However it is that you'd like to visualize this, arriving a little bit more fully than a moment ago. You're in your body now. Finding your spinal column. Stretching the top end of the spinal column upward. Stretching the tail end downward. Finding your body's center of gravity. For some of us, it might be around the navel area. And now anchoring yourself onto your seat, your cushions, by simply lowering the center of gravity so that it moves down past your pelvic region, past your legs, through into the chairs and the cushions, almost feeling your bodies merge into the surfaces underneath you, so that you feel a little bit more grounded. The center of gravity moving lower down through the carpets and the flooring underneath you, and gravitating downwards so that you feel yourself becoming a part of the earth, feeling the stability that seems to arrive with this connection. And then once again, taking a peek at where the mind is at this moment. At this juncture, reminding ourselves that our practice is not about wrestling with thoughts. And it's very easy that when we enter into a meditation practice, a mindfulness practice, there are many schools out there, many books, and I'm sure all of us have read and know so much about meditation, what to expect, what results we would like. Sometimes there is an expectation that there needs to be absolute stillness in the mind, and maybe you've experienced it in some of your other practices. And you have a target towards which you wish to strive for, achieve in today's practice. But this is a slightly different practice. It's a slightly different practice where we remind ourselves we're not here to take the bull by its horns. We're not here to force the mind to go still, to wrestle with our thoughts, to tame the mind. Instead, we are just here to step aside. The bull may be charging. The thought may be charging towards us. The thought stream may be flowing towards us. And instead of attempting to push against it, to create a wall and get it to stop, we simply try something different, stepping aside. And it's totally up to you how many steps you'd like to take, to move to the side of the stream, of this charge. Sometimes it's not just a single animal, it's a herd, thought after thought. Far less effort. In fact, no effort. The only effort you're exerting is that required to step aside. We take one step to the side, 2, 3, 4, 5. And soon we've stepped off the arena onto that area where the spectator seats are. We place ourselves there, make ourselves comfortable. And if it was a stream that you had seen, then stepping outside of the stream onto the banks, taking as many steps as you like away from the stream, and then planting yourself on the banks of the stream so that you may just observe it. Even smiling because of how easy it's been to no longer confront, fight, struggle. Effortless. You still hear the gurgling, the bubbling, the flowing. You still see the unwanted pieces of rubbish that were annoying you from the past, fears about the future, driftwood, floating by. But you allow. And if it was the charging bull, it's got nothing to charge against now. It runs. It runs, and deep down inside, you have a knowing that it will tire. It will get tired and it will stop. It's that feeling of not judging that allows everything to gradually slow down. The judgments, sometimes judgments that seem to indicate that we like something, that we are interested, they stimulate thoughts and they cause that animal to run and move even faster. And sometimes it's a thought that's not very pleasant, that we're uncomfortable with, that we judge as bad. We shouldn't even be thinking in this practice. That's a judgment that also charges up the animal, causing it to run even faster. Almost as though we were trying to grab hold of it with a lasso or hold on to it somehow. But bring yourself back to where you are seated now. Being a spectator, observing. Notice the space that exists between you, who is observing, who is witnessing, and that object called the thought. Notice the space. Shift your focus from the thought to the space. And then observe the observer witnessing this space, basically stepping back, even from the witness, even from the observer. Does this mean you would be retiring deeper within yourself? And then another step. Even deeper, so that you witness the witness witnessing the mind. Sometimes noticing how easy it is to get sucked into the story, into the stream, into the drama of the charge. But Simply having done it once, having done it twice, having done it 3 times, recognizing your ability to simply be aware and each time returning back into this space called the present moment, which seems to be without beginning and without end. Five years ago was once a now moment, a present moment. 2 minutes ago had also been a now moment. The same with 2 minutes from now and 2 years from now, always arriving as the present moment. Let's not try to understand what the present moment means, but simply experience it. How do we experience the present moment? We have 5 doorways that lead us into this moment. 5 doorways. They're called our senses. We've already explored some of them briefly. Our sense of touch, our skin. Not only the skin at the tips of our fingers, but the skin that envelops the whole body. Those parts which are in contact with the fabric, called our clothing. The skin around the face, the ears, the neck, that seem to give us very accurate glimpses of temperature, of the stillness of the movement in the air around us. We awaken our skin, our bodies, to a very simple fact, because this is a simple practice. It only gets complicated the more we learn about it, the more we study it, the more we think about it. Bring out and awaken the child within us. That likes to experience, that wishes to experience what it actually feels like to be here, now in this moment. For most of us, the air feels quite still, unless you have a fan or you have a window that's open. But sometimes we can explore this relationship we have with this air that surrounds us through our breath. A very profound relationship. One where it dawns on us that this air, this process that we call breathing, becomes our most precious of possessions. For we know we can live without our car keys and our homes and our rooms and our tablets and computers, even food for days, water as well for days. But breath, every breath counting, not skipping a single breath, simply because it's impossible so long as we live in these bodies, so long as we inhabit these bodies, every breath unfolding one after the other. Let us give our breath our attention. Which parts of the body seem to indicate that you're breathing? We've established we are sitting, some of us perhaps lying down. But which parts of the body tell you that you're breathing? And focusing only on the sensations. Your eyes are closed. Your body's... and so you're not looking at a mirror or anything like that. You might be able to hear your breath for some of us. So the sense of hearing might be telling you about that you're alive and breathing. The sense of touch is particularly vivid because that's the air traveling in and out through the nostrils and the nasal passage. That's the chest rising and falling for some of us. The rib cage within, underneath the muscles. And of course the stomach. Let's pay a bit of attention to the stomach, shall we? Bring your awareness to the sensations that you can feel within your stomach, around your stomach. And if you like, you could just break it down, starting off just with the outer bit, the skin. Breathing into your stomach and noticing what happens to the skin, to the walls of the stomach as you breathe in and then breathe out. Usually at this stage, you know whether your mind is drifting away in boredom, thinking I've done this practice many times and this is so boring. And then you know that you've started thinking about the breath. That's not what this practice is about. It's not about thinking about the breath. It's about experiencing the breath. And so just be aware that you're thinking about the breath and then bring yourself back to the experience of breathing, the rising and the falling of the stomach wall. Of course, we've started to use the breath as a tool with which to help us arrive into the present moment a little bit more fully. And you might wonder why the breath. Because the breath just is. And for most of us, the breath is neither too interesting, because when you practice with something that you find interesting, you'll notice yourself stimulating thought. And that's why you've probably heard some facilitators, some meditation teachers, they discourage the use of music in meditation, and I used to be very confused about it. I was like, why some of these some of the pieces of music are absolutely divine and sublime, and they help me enter into this zone. But I think I was advised that music can sometimes bring about emotions, unleash memories from the past. And I better understood the why. I always ask why. I have a very inquisitive mind. And so the breath, not very stimulating, not overly interesting. And of course, we don't dislike, most of us, we don't find it repulsive. We don't find the breath repulsive. And when you try to meditate on something that you have very strong judgments about, you'll find, just like the bull, it stimulates thought. And so the breath, neutral for most of us. For most of us. And so we bring ourselves back to the breath, understanding that this is not about thinking about the breath, it's about experiencing it. And so bring yourself back to the rising and the falling of the stomach wall, and then move inward through the muscles into the inner part of the stomach, feeling it balloon as you breathe in. Feeling the muscles contract and the inner parts fall and contract as you exhale. And if you like, you can follow your breath up your windpipe and begin experiencing it through your throat, finding that part within the nasal passage where the breath actually arrives. And then feeling the direction, the temperature, the humidity levels of the breath, of the rhythm as it flows in and out. Simply, naturally, comfortably. Notice the labeling that happens. And when I refer to labeling, I mean how meaning is given to the different sensations. And I'm talking about the most basic sensations. Warmth. We all feel our breath that leaves the body as warmer. We notice the increased humidity levels. How can we even tell that the breath is flowing outward? How can we tell the direction? How can we tell temperature? It's here that we begin to recognize that we have access to the library called the mind. And the mind has accumulated different experiences, contrasting experiences in order to make sense of sensations. The mind learned what warmth is, what humidity is, what coolness is, what inhalation means, what exhalation means. Remember how as young children we didn't even know that until we read about it in books. Our teachers told us, our parents told us. And we stored it in these libraries called the mind. And as you experience these sensations, noticing these meanings arise is a good thing. Just because you're beginning to recognize how the mind is aligning itself with the lining within the nose, the skin. It's become curious. Which direction? What's an in-breath? What's an out-breath? It's feeding us this information. And in this process, it's left many of your problems behind. It's left the stories. It's stepped outside of the stories. It's left the future. And it too is arriving, aligning itself into this moment. You're possibly experiencing it as glimpses of stillness and silence. This is what it feels like to have these glimpses of alignment. Glimpses, we're just going to call them glimpses, because we're all in this together as a practice. Always practicing. Which means there is no standard we need to conform to. We're always practitioners in this practice. And so the mind will take us away. And you'll notice even after this practice, as your normal day unfolds, there'll be events, conversations, things that happen around you that will stimulate thought. And then you will practice alignment. Every contrasting experience, we won't call them problems anymore. Why don't we together in this group maybe a declaration is too strong a word, but in our practice we will attempt to release words such as challenges, problems, and instead use a single word, contrast. To describe the experiences that enter into our awareness. And explore our day the way a tightrope walker experiences his art, his or her art, stepping onto the rope one step and then balancing, finding alignment. For us, right now it's sitting and breathing. For the tightrope walker, it's standing and breathing and balancing. And once the balance is there, the next step. It's tempting to take the next step before achieving balance. And so we stop, we breathe, we align. Whatever activity you may be involved in, alignment, and then the winds change, the rope begins to wobble, balance, comfort, ease, and now we're ready for the next step. pretty much sums up our practice as we move through our days. I'll ring the bell now, just so that you can have a sip of water and adjust your body before we move into the final few minutes of our practice. But if you like, experience your bodies once again, from within, from outside, identifying any pockets of discomfort, of tightness. Anything at all within and around your body that could help give you some form of comfort or release. And when I ring the bell, listen to your body. Could be a sip of water, could be a stretch, could be a massage of a particular muscle that's particularly tense. Bringing a sense of continuity. Because as you know, at the end of this practice, you're going to begin moving again. Let this be the precursor where we practice movement meditation, where we notice how movement unfolds, initially through an intention, and right now, no doubt, through impatience. If you're uncomfortable, there will be the nagging thought, when is the bell going to ring? When is the bell going to ring? I needed to hurry up because I really need to move my body. But just watching that thought in itself becomes a part of the practice. And noticing how easy it actually is to feel good. How simple. Movement, a stretch. How change can sometimes be welcomed. Maybe we can set the groundwork for how we will prepare ourselves for bed tonight. Because myself included, I often thought that a practice just meant sitting down in this way. And if I did it every day, in some disciplined way, it was enough. But I'm beginning to realize how sleep plays a very important role in practices such as this, because sleep can be used as a process in itself to slow the momentum of the mind down. And it all begins those moments before we go to bed. Sometimes the few minutes you have before going to bed, and sometimes a few hours, where you just begin noticing what aggravates you. And for some of us it's work, for some of us it's looking at the news, watching disturbing images or voices on the television or radio. They stimulate our thoughts. And becoming aware of how we feel, and then creating these gaps where we enter into these practices where we ground ourselves into our bodies, where we become aware. And let's just assume it's the last few minutes before we go to bed. Just the footsteps that we take towards our beds. Slowing down, feeling the texture of the carpet or the flooring underneath our feet, feeling the texture of the looser, more comfortable clothing that we find our bodies wrapped up in. Sometimes it's the taste of toothpaste, what flowing water looks like, the smell of toothpaste and mint and all of that, and hand creams or whatever creams it is that you sometimes use that smell quite nice. The weight of the duvet, the way in which the mattress and the surface supports our body, and continuing with this awareness, this level of awareness, so that we become separate from our thoughts, as we have just practiced, as we drift into sleep in a state of awareness. And then seeing sleep as you would the reset button on a computer or a phone that completely resets the momentum, so that when you wake up, waking up with a higher, not a perfect degree of awareness, but a higher degree of awareness, waking up aware of the mattress and the duvets and the comfort and the warmth and hopefully the good things, and taking a few moments just to ground yourself. It doesn't have to be too long. My teachers normally recommend about 15 minutes, just grounding yourself, which can sometimes, and I've seen this in my own life, making a huge difference to the way in which I experience the day. 15 minutes of awareness, presence, breathing. And gradually you'll notice the momentum of the mind slowing down. I don't know what today's practice was like for you, but if you're new to practices such as this, the momentum of the mind can be quite fast. And so it can be quite a struggle stepping outside of and becoming the spectator to the charging bull rather than being in the arena. But these are little ways where you can help your practice, where it becomes easier as the days go by, and you notice, because this is your experiment, your practice. The final bell now. Actually symbolizing the beginning.